first interested in the sport of boxing?
Wow. I'll tell you what, my first memory of boxing is one of the Patterson-Liston fights. My dad loved Patterson. That was his favorite fighter of all time. And the fight was on that night, and he couldn't get the radio to work. And it was on the radio live. And he was tinkering. My dad was a tinkerer. He had like the radio, all the guts were laid out, and he was trying to put it back together. He couldn't get it together, so I remember him saying to my mom, I'm going to go down in the car and listen to it. And we lived in a fifth floor walk-up, so he ran down, went to the car. By the time he started the car, the fight was over, and he was very disappointed. But that was my first memory that that there was such a thing as boxing and what it was. And then I remember they were showing, I guess they must have showed a replay on television, because he showed me. He goes, "Hey, this is that fight that I was trying to watch the other day," and I saw it. And it intrigued me. And I have a brother who's like 2 years younger than me, and we fought constantly, as brothers often do. And one day, my dad came home from work with 2 pairs of boxing gloves and a box, and he said, "If you guys are going to fight, put these on." So we were still in Astoria, so I had to be 5 years old. The first Ring magazine I ever bought, I'll never forget it. It was a picture of a guy sitting in a robe that said Muhammad Ali. It clearly wasn't Muhammad Ali, but it said, it had his name, Muhammad Ali, on the back, and there's a TV screen. He was saying, "I'm the real champ, and I'm going to prove it," and I thought, this is great. So then, from then, I bought Ring magazine every week. I always looked in the back. There was always an ad for boxing equipment from this place, G&S Sporting Goods, downtown Essex Street. And the stuff was cheap. It was much cheaper than Everlast stuff. It was like, this is pretty good. And they had a guy standing there with gloves on. It's like, someday I'm going to buy this stuff. But then I was working as a messenger in the city after high school. I didn't go to college right away. And I said, what the hell? I'm going to go down Essex Street and check this out. So I go down, and sure enough, man, there's G&S Sporting Goods, this little place. I go in, and there's this little old man sitting behind the counter, and I tell him what I want, and he sells me the stuff. And I may have spent $30, and I got gloves, and I got a headgear, I got all the stuff I needed. And he says, we have a gym too. I said, where is it? He goes, it's in Brooklyn. Because I was working, I would get done doing my work as a messenger at 5 o'clock. I'd get on the subway, and I went down there, and I started training. I found out right away, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. It was very, very busy. There were a lot of people. It was on the 3rd floor, a walk up. First floor was like a novelty store. Second floor was a pool hall, and the 3rd floor was the gym. And the first day I got there, there were these guys standing out front that looked pretty goddamn scary. And I was like, I was this close to turning around and going back on the subway. No, I'm going to go. So, and I went up the 3 flights of steps. And to this day, whenever I get into something that's a little bit intimidating or I'm not sure, I always say, you walked up those 3 fucking flights of steps, right? If you did that, you can do this. Seriously. And I trained there for about 5 years. I loved it. But I learned a lot about what I didn't know. Got my jaw broken in there. Got my ribs broken. I got a lot of my body broken, but I tell you what, it made me a lot stronger. I came out of there, went to college finally, and became a boxing writer. Because of that, because of the fact that I walked up those 3 steps, those 3 flights of steps. First time they put me in, I thought I was really good, because I used to get into fights all the time in high school, beat the crap out of everybody in my high school, right? And sparred with my friends much better than all of them. So now I go into this gym, and he says, "Let me see what you can do." The trainer, Izzy Zerling, who was a former pro, like in the 40s. So now I show him everything I know how to do in the heavy bag. He goes, "You're too green, I can't put you in the ring for a while." I was like, what? So now, after about 2 weeks, he says, "All right, I can put you in." And he puts me in with a kid who weighs 135 pounds, and I'm 160. And I'm kind of embarrassed, and I'm insulted. I'm like, what the hell is this? He goes, "No, just be careful with this kid." And sure enough, first time the kid hit me, I was like, whoa, this is not the game that I thought it was. It's like when you're playing baseball with your friends, and then you get up against a guy who can throw 95. And wait, this is not baseball as I know it, So, there was a learning curve, but after a while I realized I can do this. This does not hurt. I don't care if it does hurt. This is what I like. This is what I love. I gave it up after I had the broken jaw because I realized that the body is breakable, and my body is breakable, and it wasn't up to that point. And then at that point, I just wanted to write about it.
You went into the gloves.
Oh, yeah,
What
yeah.
year did you go? And you
1977.
fought at Sunnyside, right? Did you fight at
I fought at Sunnyside Gardens.
Describe that whole atmosphere.
Sunnyside Gardens was great. It was unbelievable. It was almost claustrophobic. I mean, like the ring, it felt like people were on top of the ring, The ring was here, and like everybody, the whole room was closed in on top of it. I remember, in the Golden Gloves, they put you all in one room, everybody, all the fighters go in the same room. And it's in the winter, so it's cold, it was January, and they had like a space heater or something that was just spitting out like this black smoke. And we were all like choking to death in here. And that night at Sunnyside, I fought like the 24th fight of the night, which actually turned out to be great. It was good. You know why? Gave me time to relax. I watched some of the other fights. I sat back, I stretched a little bit, I was ready to go. I must have not gotten into the ring till close to midnight. It was the greatest experience of my life that night. It really was. So I knocked the guy out in the first round. And the other guy, there was another guy from my gym who fought that night who lost a decision and just did not fight well. He just hardly did anything. And I remember we were walking out together, the three of us. It was me, the other guy whose name I don't remember, and Izzy Zerling, who ran the gym. And I remember he was berating the other kid. He's going, what the hell's wrong? He goes, you got to be like this guy. This guy was like a tiger in there. And I always felt like that's great, as he thought I was a tiger tonight. It was really cool. And I got knocked out in my next fight at the Felt Forum.
Okay.
Yeah, in front of a lot of people, because I tried to be a tiger.
Who were your early writing influences?
Oh, my God. Oh, boy. Bob Waters, who became my mentor at Newsday, huge influence. Dick Young, unfortunately. I could tell you a Dick Young story. One of my first assignments at Newsday was to cover the Holmes-Michael Spinks fight, all right? And I didn't know that Dick Young and Larry had a history, and they hated each other. And Larry was training, and he was hitting the heavy bag, and Dick was like trying to ask him questions, and he was deliberate. Like, I didn't realize at the time because I didn't know there was a history. But now, looking back, I realized he was deliberately trying to piss off Larry Holmes. They're trying to annoy him, right? And Larry kept turning around saying, "Dick, I'm training. Dick, I'm training." Right? And I'm there with the cream of the boxing crop. Michael Katz is there, and Ed Schuyler, and Pat Putnam, and Mike Marley, and guys from out of town, because this is a big fight, right? We're in Las Vegas. Finally, Larry Holmes turns and says to his bodyguards, "Get him the fuck out of here." So they took Dick Young out, and Dick Young's he's screaming and yelling, right? And they drag him out. So the older guys, and I'm a young guy, it's one of my first big fights. The older guys all get together and go, "We got to leave," I mean, this would never happen today. Yeah. But back then they were like, if Dick can't be in here, we can't be in here either. Right? And there were one or two guys that said, "No, I don't work for Dick Young. I have to stay here and do this." But I went with them. We're leaving. Okay, let's go. We're walking out. That night we all go to dinner. The whole group it was such a collegial thing too. Everybody got along well. We all, even though we were in competition and we were trying to kill each other in the paper, we all hung out together. Went to this place called Piero's in Las Vegas, a really good Italian place. And Dick came along. And we're all, and Dick was a pontificator, and he was yelling at me and some other young boxers. "You guys don't know what you're talking about. I'm going to tell you." You had to put up with him because he was Dick Young. But anyway, after about an hour, after we finished the meal, Dick excused himself to go to the men's room. He never came back. And we were, "What happened with Dick?" I don't know. Did somebody go find? So somebody goes up to find out. Turns out he got up and he paid the check for everybody to thank us for walking out. So, he could be a nasty prick, but he also had a love for those of us who did the job. Another time, and this is not a boxing story, but I was covering a baseball game with him at Shea Stadium, sitting next to him, and I'm thrilled, because again, I'm in maybe my first or second year, and this is Dick Young, and we're talking baseball, and he's treating me like an equal, and it's wonderful. So I say, "Dick, I'm going to go get a cup of coffee. Would you like anything?" He says to me, "You're a sports writer, son. You don't get anybody coffee." Okay, man. So I mean, I disagreed with him in the paper every single day. I hated everything he wrote. I mean, I couldn't stand, I thought he was racist, I thought he was reactionary, I thought he was everything, but I also knew that he loved what we did. So he was a huge influence on me. Breslin, God, Breslin was an influence on all of us. Every one of us that read him, I think when we all started, we tried to write like him. Soon found out that we couldn't. Honestly, not to digress, but this is one of the reasons why I went into boxing writing, is because I felt like fighters were getting ripped off. I loved boxers, and I really did. And I hated the mob guys who were behind it. And I hate mob guys to this day. When I started to write at Newsday, Bob Waters, who was one of 3 people to pick Cassius Clay to beat Sonny Liston, 3 people on planet Earth. Everybody else thought he was going to get killed. I mean, this guy knew his boxing inside and out. And we hit it off. We talked boxing just about every day. And he wasn't well, He had all kinds of health problems. And he really helped me a lot because, the way things happen, some publicists will send out a thing, Joe Blow is training in the Catskills tomorrow, we're having a press conference. He didn't want to do these things anymore. So there was one where Cooney was training up in the Catskills for some fight or other, like Eddie Gregg or somebody. And he just looked at Dick Sandler and said, "Richard, send the kid." So, and I went, and Sandler liked the story, and then from there I was his backup, and, and he didn't want to do anything. Which was great, So he was a great mentor of mine. He really was.
What was the first big moment where you were like, holy shit, like, I'm covering this?
Oh, easy. Hagler Hearns. And I wasn't covering it. I was the second guy. Greg Logan, who was a colleague of both of us at Newsday, was the main guy. Sandler sent me there, he said, go get the lay of the land, if Logan needs any help, So I really didn't even have to write anything. I just had to go. And I just soaked up the whole thing, because they, the way it is back then when they had an outdoor fight at Caesar's Palace, they'd have an outdoor workout every day, and I was just thrilled to watch Tommy Hearns hit the hand pads with Emmanuel Stewart. Like, I'd never heard, anything crack like that. Like, holy Jesus, So I really got into the scene even before the fight started. I was thrilled, And those days in the casino, when you'd walk through the casino, all the screens would have highlight films of Hagler and Hearns, because they want you to bet, right? Or you get really excited, so you go and bet. And I remember the fight was a Saturday, and the undercard started maybe 3 in the afternoon, and I said, I'm going, I'm going to be there for, I'm the only one in press row, but I'm going to go, right? And it's blazing hot. Right, and I decided I want to go up to the very top row and look at it from up there. So I go up there, and it's the first fight of the card. It's a guy, a local welterweight, and I'll never forget the guy because it was the first fight I ever saw in Las Vegas, named Andy Minster. You may have heard the name. It was kind of a journeyman welterweight, but at the time I didn't know that. And he had his hair cut like in a fade, and from up there, he looked like Dempsey. And I was like, this is what it must have been like in Toledo when Dempsey fought Willard, it was blazing sun. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. So, by the time Hagler and Hearns got into the ring, I was already I was in heaven. I was thrilled. And then, of course, the fight starts, and, the first round is as crazy as anything you've ever seen. And everybody in press row is standing because, we think that the fight's going to end. So, it happens. You stand up because you think that, this is it. You don't want to miss anything. And my legs are shaking at the end of the round. And I was next to Skyler. Skyler goes, kid, they're not all like this. It's like, really? How about that?
Talk about the relationship with Tyson, what were the ups and downs of that?
Yeah.
How did he get upset with you?
It's funny. We met before his first fight at, obviously I was aware of him, but his first fight at the Garden was in 1985. I think Cuss had just died. It was 84, 85. He was going to fight some clown, Sammy Scaff or somebody. But they brought him in. It was a big, whoop-de-doo. At that point, he was maybe 10 or 11 and 0, all KOs, and everybody was scared to death of him. And he didn't say a word at this press conference. He came in, he was in leather pants and a leather jacket with no shirt. And he looked scary as hell, but he didn't say a word. Jacobs did all the talking. Jim Jacobs did all the talking for him. But when it was over, we were able to walk over to him and ask a question, and we just kind of hit it off because I was at least 10 years younger than everybody else on the beat. And he thought I was his age, although I was 10 years older than him, but everybody else was, 10 years older than me. So he says to me, take a walk with me. I'm going I'm going to take the train back up to Catskill. So we walked from the Garden to Grand Central, and we had a great talk. And, we just really hit it off. I don't even remember what we talked about. I talked about girls, things that young guys talk about, not even about boxing. In my mind, I'm thinking, like, this guy is going to be my Muhammad Ali or my Dempsey or my Joe Louis, like me and him are tight, and I'm going to follow him through his career. So about a week later, I go up to Catskill to interview him, and we sit in the living room and we talk for like 2 hours. It gets to the point where he asked me what my sign is, and I wrote a really nice story, and now I'm on the Tyson train now. I'm going. Let's go, man. I'm going for the ride. And he knocks out Scaff, and then I'm following him to Albany to watch him knock out the aluminum siding guy, Dave Jaco. He was an aluminum siding mechanic who did this on the side. Yeah. Then he fights Quick Tillis in Glens Falls, and you know what? He almost loses the damn fight.
I remember that. Yeah.
He only wins the fight because he knocks him down, right? Yeah. And I wrote I wouldn't say negative, but a critical piece, that basically wrote, this guy showed the world how to beat Tyson. Right. Somebody's going to do it at this point. This guy couldn't get it done. From then on, it started with Jacobs and Kevin Rooney. They were very cold to me now at this point. And sooner or later, it spread to Tyson. At Newsday on a Sunday, we used to write a 2-page spread, right, in the middle.
Yeah,
right? It's called the Double Truck, the Sunday Special, whatever, right?
Special, yes, yeah.
They had me talk to a whole bunch of trainers about, Tyson's strengths and weaknesses. And I spoke with the usual suspects, Angelo Dundee, I spoke with Gil Clancy, I spoke with Ray Arcel, I spoke with, Emmanuel, Eddie Futch, all of them. And all of them were pretty, pointed out all his flaws. And after that, the camp hated me. They hated me. The real upshot of it was the people who were trying to take advantage of Tyson thought that I was their ally now. So this is how Robin Givens comes to me with the story that Mike Tyson's beating her up. Because they think they found somebody who's an enemy of Mike, Right. So I'm fine, I'm listening, you tell me, I'm an enemy of Mike if you say so, like I was handpicked to do this. And, I won't deny that. I mean, people can, especially in our business, there's so many egos. Oh, and I got this story. Well, bullshit. Stories come to you. People pick you out and say, hey, you know what? This is the guy we can get. So they got me with that. They didn't get me. They gave me that story. And I will tell you this. Tyson hated my guts. However, before the story can go to print, because, just quick recap, Robin's alleging that Tyson's beating her up and abusing her in all different ways. And we're going to go to print with it, but we got to get Tyson. Yeah. Right, we cannot write the story if Tyson doesn't at least answer this. So this is the Friday before he's going to fight Spinks the following Saturday. So 8 days, and this is a Friday night, and we're going to go to print on Sunday for Sunday morning. So we're going to print Saturday. And I finally get him through Jose Torres, who's this is another New York State Athletic Commission story. This guy's the chairman of the New York State Athletic Commission, but he has a pipeline to Tyson, right? So I call Jose, and he wants to know what it's about. I said, I really got to talk to Mike. So I said, I'll only tell you a little bit of it, but please give me your word of honor that you're not going to tell Mike what it is until I talk to him. So I told him. And I'm in the office now. It's like 10 o'clock at night on a Friday. And somebody goes, Wally, Mike Tyson's on line 10. I said, you're full of shit. No, really? I said, I pick it up. He goes, all right, what do you want? He's pissed. He's pissed. So I tell him, I say, look, man, this is what I got. I'm going to read you exactly what they told me, and I just need you to. And after I tell him, he's like shocked on the other end. And we talk for about 20 minutes. He gives me his side of things and all. And he goes, hey, I got to tell you something, man. I really appreciate you telling me this. You're a true pal or something like that. He says, I have the tape somewhere. Yeah. He says, you're a friend, man. I really thank you for telling me this. I'm thinking, okay, me and Mike are all right again because I told him this. We get the story into the paper. But then after that, he doesn't talk to me again for like another 2 years because somebody got to him, and it was pretty rough. It was pretty rough. He told Playboy magazine he was going to kill me.
How much does that affect you? How much does it? You got to go to the next fight. You got to be in the.
It didn't. It didn't. I wanted to be I wanted to be there. I wanted to be at those fights. I knew it was my job. It was my job. I never thought about it that way. I mean, if he's going to come down off the podium and take a shot at me, what the hell? I felt like it was my job, and I'm going to ask him the question. If he doesn't want to answer me, and there were plenty of times he didn't, maybe somebody else will ask the question. And at some point the answer will come out. And whatever answers he does give, I'm going to use.
So how did you find covering King?
Difficult, but funny. Very funny, very funny. I remember one time I called him with something that was some damaging story we were going to write about him. And I asked him for a comment, and he said to me, man, I'm going to have to hang up on you, and tomorrow I'm just going to say the motherfucker never called me. I mean, what can you say to something like that? It's pretty funny, And when he was on trial, in one of the Lloyds of London trial, right, an insurance fraud thing, Jack Newfield and I were covering it for the Post, and Jack had just sold his book to HBO, right, about King.
Yeah.
Okay. Somehow we're all taking a piss at the same time. It's me, it's Newfield, and it's King in the bathroom. King turns to his left and goes, Jack Newfield, I just read in the paper I'm supporting your whole motherfucking family. I mean, he was funny. I mean, I knew what he was. He was a thug, but he always made me laugh. There were times when he would be really nasty, and he would sometimes say threatening things, but he never physically, I don't know. I found him endlessly entertaining, honestly.
Talk a little bit about going to the TV side of things, because you've done a lot of TV, and is there a difference in your reporting style or approaches? What are the differences between TV and newspaper? And then obviously that moment, which I still remember, I got in.
I'm in, yeah. Which was, by the way, a mistake. All right. I got the chance. I was friendly with an NBC publicist named Kevin Monahan, and I think he put a word in for me with Mike Weissman, who was the executive producer. That this guy, I was writing boxing for Newsday. This guy might be okay, for our Olympic coverage, because they decided they're going to go like journalistic heavy, the soul searchers, whatever we were, soul survivors. I don't know what the hell we were, but anyway, he was going to hire all newspaper guys. He hired me, John Feinstein, Armin Katayan. I mean, a lot of people who are still working in TV, which I'm not, to really ferret out information. And they asked me to go to Lexington, Kentucky for a Darren Van Horn fight. And I would just be like the sideline reporter. I was just going to go in and ask questions. I wasn't going to do any commentary during the fight. That was going to be Marvin Furty, right? That was their thing, Marv Albert, Furty, Pacheco. And I was just going to do the post-fight interview. And apparently I asked a good question. I don't remember what it was. But somebody wrote in the paper, I think Bob Arum or somebody wrote, that David Neal, who was the producer in the truck, burst out and said, that guy just asked a great question. I don't remember what the question was. I mean, we ask questions all day long, So that kind of showed me right there that TV's a little bit different, If you're not just saying, hey, slugger, how did that feel when you hit the home run? They think it's a great question. I don't know what the hell I asked them, but it was all right. So I got hired to go to Seoul, and it was difficult because TV people are different. I mean, there's a lot of egos and a lot of posing and a lot of, like everybody's kind of like doing their act. Like they never seem like real people to me. I mean, even Marv Albert, who I love dearly. Marv, if you're watching this, I love you. I mean, we're friends. But I mean, he's Marv Albert, he passed the salt, like he's never not Marv Albert. And it's true of all of them. And I kind of had a little trouble fitting in that way. But I think that's what they were looking for in this thing. They were looking for, because John Feinstein said fuck on the air during Seoul, and he never got back on. They said, you know what, that guy's not going back on camera. And he only said it because it is confusing to newspaper guys to have somebody in your ear saying, all right, now look this way and ask that guy. And he got a little flustered and said, oh, fuck. And it was live television. Which brings me to my little gaffe. He's been disqualified, and he's a big gold medal hopeful.
Get on the bus.
Okay. There's my athlete right there.
Listen, let's proceed with the bouts, and we'll take care of it. Okay.
Here's Anthony Hembrick right now walking into the arena.
Let's proceed with the rest of the.
Been waiting. We could have been here. Did you see the schedule? What does the schedule show? It's about number 11.
Now listen.
We were coming at 10:30 because we had.
And he's now in the dressing room, and at the Olympics, security was tight. And this is pre 9/11. You can imagine. I can't even imagine what it is now. Yeah. But at the time, security is tight, and you can't get into anything. And they're telling me, you know, get in there and talk to him. And they're yelling in my ear, get in there and talk to him. I'm on live TV. And I just burst through the security guard and I go, okay, I'm in. Which I was actually answering the director, which which is like almost the equivalent of John Feinstein saying fuck on the air.
Right.
But I didn't say fuck, I just said I'm in.
Right.
And we got the interview and it was very good. And I mean, fortunately for me, a lot of crazy stuff happened in that Olympics.
Yeah.
We had a referee chased from the arena to the airport because he ruled against a Korean fighter. We had Roy Jones being robbed, by a fight that we found out later, which, we knew it was fixed, but now we found out hard evidence that, there were payments made. So it was, I had a lot of time in the spotlight. To me, the most dramatic moment was right after Roy Jones's thing. Roy Jones, was crying, and I was the first one to interview him on live TV after that.
Is there any doubt in your mind that you had won the fight?
No, there's no doubt at all. I knew I had won the fight. I won all 3 rounds clearly, but...
Now, what about when you heard that the decision was 3-2?
Next fight is Ray Mercer knocked out Korean guy to win his gold medal. And it was, the whole team rallied around it. And I remember when it was over, Mike Weissman, who was the executive producer, said, you're not a newspaper guy anymore, you're a TV guy now. But it didn't happen. Never happened, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm a snobbish SOB. I never applied myself to it. And believe me, I kicked myself over it because I could have made a lot of money doing it. But I always felt like, I always looked down on them. I always did. I always thought they were doing like 2-second sound bites. There's no real analysis here. They're afraid to really dig. And I felt like we were digging. This is what we do for a living. And, it was because of that, because of my, my thing where I think what I'm doing is better than what you're doing. I screwed it up. So, I mean, look, I got plenty of TV jobs.
Yeah, I was gonna
I
say,
got plenty
you
of
worked
TV
in
jobs.
for a while, yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. But I never was able to really break out of newspapers into that. So, but you know what? Besides the fact that financially I regret it, I don't regret it professionally. I love covering Iran Barkley. My God, did I love covering him. Great guy, and a fighter who was literally willing to die every single time he fought. I liked, who else? I liked covering Tyson just because of the excitement of the night, and we always kind of had a pool, like would the fight last as long as the national anthem? Most of the time it didn't. Even though he was difficult, he was a good copy. Even when he was difficult, he was good copy. Sugar Ray Leonard could be a pain in the ass. Although we get along fine now, but he always wanted to fight me. He was like, hey, how about you and me do an exhibition? I'm like, no, we're not going to do that, Ray. Yeah, he always, for some reason, thought that I didn't like him as a fighter, and I loved him. I thought he was amazing, and I thought he beat Hagler,
Yeah, I agree, yeah.
Marvin was difficult to cover. Very suspicious of everyone, rarely would give an interview, would give you 5 minutes at most. I was in Johnny Taco's gym in Las Vegas the day he got knocked down in sparring. I think that's what his name was, Bobby Patterson. Anyway, if you've ever been in Johnny Taco's, it was basically a ring and just enough room to be around and a payphone on the wall. And everybody packed in because Marvin never had an open workout. Now he decides he's going to have an open workout. And it's like 6 o'clock Vegas time, which is 9 o'clock here in New York. Okay, and of course nothing's going to happen. It's just a workout. Big deal. He's going to fight Mugabe. So this is going to be a routine thing, but we got to go just in case. You never know. And here he's sparring. All of a sudden, boom! Here he goes. You've never seen 30 guys run for one payphone because everybody is on a deadline. It was 9 o'clock at night, and but it was an amazing thing to be at. It was like historic and
No cell phones.
No cell phones whatsoever, and everyone like, come on, hurry up, get off that damn phone. Because it was news, it was the kind of thing where, you're not expecting anything to happen, and then, the ceiling falls in. It was Larry Holmes is going to fight Holyfield, and Arum's promoting it. And he goes on a rant about how much he hates the boxing writers today. And he's going, in the old days, you had Jimmy Cannon, you had Red Smith, you had Breslin, you had Dick Young. Now you have guys like Matthews and Saraceno picking up cocktail waitresses at the pool. He says this on live television. So I'm sitting next to John Saraceno, who's the other party of the second part that just got mentioned. And I turned to him and I said, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill him after this press conference. He goes, no. I said, what if my wife or my boss is watching this thing? goes, don't do it. As soon as he gets done, I just can't resist. I go up to him, I say, you son of a bitch, how dare you say a thing like that? And he starts with his, screaming. So I grabbed him by the tie, and I went like this, and he started screaming, security! So I let him go, and I just said, fuck you, man, and I walked out. So then I find out in the back room, he says to Lou DiBella, that stupid son of a bitch should have hit me. Can you imagine the pay-per-view numbers? So then I ran into Arum, just like 2 years ago at the Boxing Writers Dinner. He's 90 years old now. He says to me, remember the time you wanted to kill me? I said, yes, I should have fucking finished you off that day. And he had the good grace to laugh. God, Al Braverman, he worked for Don King, so let's understand the players here. He was basically Don King's henchman. And whenever King wasn't involved in a fight, and let's say Arum had a fight, Al Braverman would then set out to destroy it. So he would, when Hagler and Leonard were going to fight, he kept calling me, Braverman kept calling me with rumors that Sugar Ray Leonard was dying of AIDS. First of all, how the hell do you know this? Second of all, the fight is scheduled for like 3 weeks from now. This is complete BS. But the whole thing was I'm sure he tried this on several people, hoping one person will write it and that will kill the ticket sales. Because it was, if you're not part of the party, you try to crash it, you try to destroy it. So that's what they were doing. I'll tell you a story that I never wrote and I wish I had. This is when Tyson was about to go on trial for rape, okay? He calls me, he says, I want you to come meet me. It was a Saturday, I was off. He said, I want you to come meet me at my wife's antique shop. We'll go out for a cup of coffee. We've got to tell you some things about this girl who's accusing Mike. So now we go to this diner that's down the block. And he has all these documents that supposedly are incriminating this woman. I'm not even gonna get into what they were, but they were all reasons why I should write that she's not the person that they're saying she is. Obviously trying to discredit the rape allegation and perhaps taint the jury pool because things are going to be read in Indianapolis, whatever. So now after he does his whole pitch, and I'm looking at it and I'm not going to write it, but he then takes out a manila envelope, shaped like this, pretty thick. He goes, I want you to take this home and, you and your wife look at it and decide what you want to do. And I look at it and it's money. It's, it's like, for all I know, it's a brick of $100 bills, which is $10,000. So I'm an idiot, first of all. I have no problem. I'm still at the point in my career where, I can't be bought and, I'm here for good truth, justice, the American way. So I decide I'm going to dump the table on him. So I get up and the table is bolted down so nothing moves. So I just storm out of the place and he's yelling back at me, you stupid ass, everybody else is doing it, he says, right? So now I don't know what to do. I go home and I call my editor, it was Dick Sandler at the time at Newsday. And I told him what happened. And I said, what should I do? He goes, you stupid ass, you should have taken it, brought it back and written the story, and we would put them all in jail.
Contrast baseball players
Oh,
to
God.
boxers.
What, I had an education. I really did. Because I would talk to the ball players the way I talk to the boxers. And I found out you can't do that. I mean, I was at, just to go back for a second, after Tyson got knocked out by Buster Douglas, and he did a press conference here in New York. And everybody was kind of tiptoeing around Mike. And then some foreign guy put his hand up and said, Mike, why did you lose to Buster Douglas? And Tyson just looked at it and said, because he kicked my fucking ass. But you can't go up to a baseball player and say, how did you swing through that 3-2 pitch? They look at you like, what the fuck do you, when have you ever been up there? Ball player, you got to beat around the bush. And I found this out because a couple of times, either guys wouldn't answer me or the manager, even Joe Torre, such an easygoing guy. He was bitching about some game that they lost, and they were still in first place. And, and the guys were kind of tiptoeing around them. Finally, I said, Joe, why is this one biting you so much? He looks at me and goes, if you have to ask that question, you haven't been paying attention. I was like, what the fuck, man? It's a simple question. So I learned that you have to phrase things a different way. What was your approach in that last at-bat? when you struck out with the bases loaded, you know, and then they would answer you that way. But they weren't all like that. Some of them, actually, I tell you what, my favorite guy to cover in the Yankees is Alex Rodriguez. And he is a prima donna diva from hell, but he likes boxing. He likes talking to people he thinks are important, right? If he thinks you're like, you know, I was with ESPN, so he wants to talk to me, right? And he wants to talk about boxing, you know, because, you know, oh, yeah, he goes, who was more fun to cover, me or Mike Tyson? He'd say things like that. Yeah, for the most part, they are very guarded, and they're used to having the questions softened, you know, even the managers. I mean, God, you know, one time when Girardi was managing the Yankees, one of his pitchers, I can't remember who it was, Javier Vasquez, I don't know, he hit 3 batters in a row. Nobody's asking the question. Joe, how do you stay with a guy who hits 3 consecutive batters? He says to me, well, who would you suggest I put in there? I said, somebody who could hit bats and not batters. And he got pissed off. I mean, you know, like, it's a simple question. How do you stay with a pitcher who hit, you know, don't you take this guy out now? Or at least say, I didn't have somebody ready. And the other thing is, the fighters aren't coddled. They're not coddled. And the ball players are. Ball players have been coddled since they're like 10 years old, right? I mean, to make it to the major leagues, and, you know, I gained tremendous respect for what it takes to be a major league ball player from covering, you know, the team for 10 years. I see how hard they work, how talented they are, how easy they make it look. But obviously, they were phenoms when they were children, right? I mean, you played baseball in college. You know how much better you have to be to get to even to the low-level minor leagues, right? So they've been treated like they're made of porcelain their whole lives. And now they come here, and, you know, some beer-bellied fuck like me is asking, you know, a tough guy, like, how the hell do you not, you know, didn't you know he was going to throw you a fastball there? You know, they're not used to that. So it's a whole different thing. And I did learn it. It took me a couple of years. But I wound up, by the end of it, I loved it. I really loved it. I like baseball because, like boxing, it's one-on-one. You know, it's a series of one-on-one confrontations. And I liked also, like the daily soap opera of baseball. You know, even though it's a long grind, and there are times like, you know, you're in June or July, and you go, shit, we're only halfway through this. You know, but every day it's something. You know, and you want to see how the story ends. You know, like, you know, I started with you guys in February. I want to see where this goes. You know, even if we go into November, I'm okay with it. You know, so that was different. I felt that was compelling.